All right, so yesterday we started, well, for this note sheet at least, by reiterating some of the definitions that we used in algebra that day. So like median, lower extreme, upper extreme, lower quartile, upper quartile, those were from algebra, maybe slightly different names, but we needed those things to make a box plot. And then we also kind of front loaded you with some other definitions that are also relevant this unit. Maybe we just haven't used them yet. So things like mean, mode, let's see, standard deviation, those are all coming soon. So now you have some background knowledge on them again. Same as like interquartile, that would be something new. Then now we were applying them to this random data set. My fourth hour we didn't get to really go over them. I know for you guys we did. Can you remind me what we said the median was?
12.
For this data set?
12.
Okay, I can't remember if we calculated it or not. I don't know how we did. Maybe we'll just have to check that. But what did we say the mode was?
Well,
and okay, yeah, that makes sense. The mode would have to be a number from the data set. Lower extreme was 4, upper was 25, not 10. That was in order. And I think that was as far as we thought I was to go over. Let me just double check the median because for some reason I can't remember doing that. All right, so you always want to make sure your data is in order. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm crossing them out as I go, so that way I don't miss any. 14, 15, 22, and 25. And then you always kind of want to go back and make sure you have the same amount of data points in your list as of here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, great. Median means the middle number. So then if I have an even number of data points, 10 data points, I should expect there to be 2 numbers in the middle. So like left, right, left, right. And here's my 2 numbers in the middle. They can't both be my median. All right, what do we do when there's 2 numbers in the middle? Add them and then divide them by 2. So 10 plus 14 and then divide by 2. That gives me the 24 divided by 2, which is 12. I think I remember doing that now. All right, so that's where the 12 comes from. It doesn't have to be like a specific number in the data set. Like as you can see, it's between these 2 numbers. And usually I'll write my median wherever it lies, because that'll separate my lower half and my upper half. So any questions on that? All right. So then table 1, can you guys tell me what else you thought would be easiest to identify next out of the list of things down here? Okay, the range. How do I find the range? So is it going to be 4 minus 25 or 25 minus 4? Okay, good. You never want your range to be negative, so that's a good indicator. It's always the bigger number minus the smaller number. Biggest minus the smallest, I should say. So then our range is what class? 21. All right. Table 1, give me one more thing that you think is easiest to identify out of the ones that are left. The lower quartile. So if we go back to our definition, in case you forget, that's going to be my median of my lower half. So you would have to find the median before you find your lower quartile. And then I always say never cross out the median. So my median was this 12. All right, that's my Q2. I'm just gonna label it. All right, to find my Q1 or my lower quartile, make sure don't cross out the median, but you also go left, right, left, right, until you get a middle number or middle two numbers. So my lower quartile is 10. If you haven't already, try finding the upper quartile. Don't yell it out though if you already have it or really have it. Just look at it, maybe on your paper, maybe on the screen. All right, Remigio, what's my upper quartile going to be? Okay, class, do you think it's 22? All right, and visually, you can also kind of see it. That's not the middle of my upper half. So that red line that I drew separates my lower and upper half. What is my middle of my upper half? 16. All right, has two numbers to the left, two numbers to the right. There was only 5 numbers in the upper half. If it was an even amount of numbers, then you would, again, take the average of the two that are in the middle, but there's just one middle for this one. Questions on that? All right, so we've got that. Now we have mean and interquartile range left. So which one do you think is easier? Interquartile range. If you go back to that definition, it's Q3 minus Q1. And we just spent time identifying our Q3 and our Q1. So my Q3 was what class? Stayed good. My Q1 was, and my interquartile range is interquartile range. That's a mouthful. We usually just call it IQR. Question. I should always be positive. All right, last but not least, the mean. Don't do it in your head. Don't even do it by hand. Use a calculator for that. Whether it's one on your phone, if you're using Desmos, I won't get on you about that. Or if you want to pull out your Chromebook and just have it on Desmos so that you're not tempted to go on other apps on your phone, that's okay too. But I highly recommend using a calculator. All right, because the mean involves you, if we go back to the definition, adding up all the numbers and then dividing by the number of numbers. So that one definitely might be the most clear. So I'll give you a minute to do that and have an answer ready. Don't call it out. But if you do get stuck, let me know or talk to your group. We'll go over that first. And odds are there's at least a few different answers out there for the mean. So let's just put them all on the board and see if you got it. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I'm gonna have to do it with my calculator here later. All right, but table 1, what did we get for the mean? All of you. Table 2, did we get something different? Table 3, did we get something different? All right, so let's see. All right. As much as I encourage you to invest in your own handheld calculator, the reality is that not everyone can or has parents that are willing to and so forth. So even though you can't use Desmos for state testing, you have access to it on your Chromebooks because everyone's allowed to check out a Chromebook. So this will be the one that I most of the time will teach you off of. If you need help with your specific calculator, I can take a look. You just have to ask. I know how to find average on like a normal calculator, but when we get to like harder functions, if you have like a certain calculator, usually I just Google how to use that calculator for that reason. So you could do the same. There's tons of YouTube videos out there. There's even tons of videos on how to use Desmos really easily. So I have faith in you. But yeah, so we need to first take the sum of all the numbers. So I have 4 plus 4 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10. And I know like I could probably shorten it, but I'll just do it like this. 14 plus 15 plus 16 plus 22 plus 25. You always want to make sure that you didn't like forget one. Okay, so here's all 10 of my numbers. Okay, they add up to 130. Next, I need to take that 130 and divide it by what? 10. I had 10 data points. I had 10 numbers that I added together. So I have to divide by however many I added. A lot of the time, students just think you always divide by 2. Like, no, you divide by however many data points you had. So yes, you're all right if you truly got 13 when you did it. Questions on that? All right, so then 13, you can put there officially if you haven't already. All right, so good. Now let's do another example. So now on the back page. So we're going to do the same thing we just did, except for we're just finding the mean, median, range, and IQR. All right, so here's some data. Niall scored 70, 74, 72, 71, 73, and 96 on his 6 geography tests. Gives you a reminder to put it in numerical order, and then you're finding this for that data. And then go ahead and try Raul got the following golf scores in his last 7 games. Do that as well. Questions? Okay. Let's start with Vanessa. It says for this first example, we need to put the data in numerical order. Why? So that you don't get confused when you're doing which ones. The minimum, the maximum, there were some mistakes we made yesterday for that. And then out of these, also the median, the range, and the IQR. For the mean, it doesn't really need to be in order. However, if you have to find the other things that I listed, you might as well just make sure you do that first. Okay, so least to greatest. Class, what should my first number be? Then. Okay, great. It did say it was 6 geography tests, so I should have 6 data points here. And yeah, they're from least to greatest, so now we can continue. For the mean, you have to find the sum of the values and then we divide by the number of values. What was the sum of the values, Isabella? 456. Did anyone get something from that? Okay. I'll peek in my answer key later, so I'll just go with it for now. I don't really know off the top of it. What will I be dividing by, Keegan? So then, Nicholas, with my mean going to be? All right, no decimal or anything? Okay. Sometimes there could be a decimal, so that's why I asked. I'm just gonna freeze this real quick. All right, and you guys are right. So good job. Questions on that one? So on average, Niall scored a 76 on his test for geography class. Moving on, remedial for the median. What did you say? Okay, class, agreed, agreed. Drugs. So let's see, median means middle number. So we have it in order. Go from left, right, left, right, and then we have 2 in the middle. All right, so you can't go like left, right, left, and then say that's the median or anything like that. And it makes sense that I have 2 in the middle because we had an even number of data points. When I have 2 in the middle, what do? Let's see. When I have 2 in the middle, Bella-T, what do I do? Good. Otherwise known as taking the average of them. All right, so yeah, add them together, divide by 2. That would be 145 divided by 2, which is what? 72.5. Another way to think about it too, I mean, sometimes you will have to do the math because you can't see it that easy, but if you have the 2 middle numbers, your median, once you average them, will always be the halfway point between them. So like 72.5 is halfway between 72 and 73. So I could know that without even doing the math, but if you want to do the math, and you're 100% sure, you can do that too. So questions on that? All right, good. So yeah, normally we use the median to make box plots, so usually I'll circle it and label it Q2. So this is not part of my data set, it's just my median of the whole thing. All right, now my range, how do I find that range? Okay, so what's my maximum in this one class? And my minimum? And when I subtract them, I get good. I almost said 16, but no, it should be 6. Questions on that? Okay. One more, IQR. How do I calculate that thing? The way you said it was good. When you're subtracting from something else, from is also a switch word. If you remember me talking about that, you would switch the order. So yeah, subtracting Q1 from Q3 does make sense. And then what is, oh, first I guess we can probably figure out what our Q3 is. All right, so this is my median. My Q3 would be the median of my upper half. So what's my median of my upper half? Don't tell me the Jasmine. 74. When there's only 3 numbers in the upper half, it's easy to see which one's in the middle. Otherwise, go left, right, and never cross out your actual read. All right, then Parker, what's my Q1? Okay, that's what I said. So yeah, then when we subtract them, my Q3 was 74, my Q1 was 71. What's my IQR? 3. Now we haven't gotten to where we talked about this yet, but I will just let you know. There might be certain instances where we want like the range as a better measure of the spread or the IQR? All right, notice like those are kind of a big difference in numbers. One's 26, the other one's 30. So the smaller the number, the closer together the data is. So if I just look based off the range, I'm thinking, okay, that means that there's like a big variation in his test scores. So when I look back, would you say that there's a big variation in his test scores? A little bit, not between all his test scores. It's not like he's scoring all over the place. But I do agree there's a big difference between like the smallest one and the biggest one, like he aced one of them. But then IQR, the reason that one's much smaller is because it's looking more toward like the middle part of your data. When you look at the rest of the data, not including like the maximum or minimum, aren't these numbers like really close together? Yeah. So in this case, you might say that the IQR would be a better measure of spread because it's more representative of how we actually did. He scored about the same, except for like one time. Questions on that? All right. So good example. Bear with me. This one, I want to make sure we cover too, because you'll see the difference when there's an odd number of data points. All right, so let's start with table 3 for this one. Putting it in numerical order, table 3, what would be my first number? Then 4, then all right, so 81, 84, 89, then 90, then next would be, and then, do I only write that 94 once? Twice. Okay, so if there's duplicates, make sure you include all those duplicates. So that should be 7, because it said that's what he scored in 7 games. And I do have 7. So I'm just going to make this one look more like. All right, so then when I find the mean, what was my sum of my values, Justin? Okay. While she recalculates the sum, Faith, can you tell me what we'll be dividing by? 7. So there are 7 data points. 625 was the sum. I don't know for sure, but probably will be right. Can I check? And then when I divide those out, what's going to be my mean, Parker? 89.2. Class, agree, disagree? Okay, let me peek at the answers because I haven't done this today. So remember the answer. Okay, so I actually got something slightly different. Let me just put it in my calculator. I got 89.3. All right, I did do 625 divided by 7. So let's see if maybe it was my error. Okay. So let's maybe talk about that for a second. Rounding rules, I always have to review them, even when I teach summer school and like their sophomores and things like that. Always have to review rounding rules. So it doesn't specify what to round to. So if it does, you know, it goes tenths is 1 spot after the decimal, hundredths is 2 spots, thousandths with the TH is 3 spots. So if we're rounding to just 1 spot in the 10th place, underline that area, wherever you round to, underline it, and then look directly to the right. If that number is from 0 to 4, where you underline should stay the same. If it's from 5 through 9, then you round up. So since that's an 8 and it falls within here, you should be rounding to 89. Questions on that? So let's make that adjustment if you haven't already. But good. All right, now the median. What is my middle number for this set of data? Median. 90. Anyone disagree with that? Okay, I agree. There should be the same amount of numbers on each side of your median. You go left, right, left, right, left, right. And here's my median. I'll label it as Q2. So when I have an odd number of data points, I shouldn't have to worry about averaging the two middle numbers. So it would be one. So easy peasy on that one. But when it comes to, well, I'll wait till we get to it. Now let's figure out the range. What's the range, Vanessa? 13. So biggest minus smallest. 74 minus 81 is 13. All right, but IQR. What's the formula for IQR, Melanie? Okay, good. So we need to figure out what those are. We haven't said them yet. And this is why I really wanted to do this example. So never cross out the median. In the first example for this side, the median was between the two numbers. Notice we did not cross it out when we did like our left, right, left, right. Okay. The same goes for here. You're not going to cross out the 90 when you're doing your left, right, left, right. So what's going to be my Q1 remedial? All right, then you do your left, right, don't cross out the negative. And then what's going to be my Q3 grade? Okay. So then Q3 minus Q1, let me show my work. 94 minus 84. What's my IQR? Okay. All right. I won't make you do the very last one because you get the point. But yeah, right. We'll take another little brief brain break and then we'll talk about algebra. In regards to algebra this morning, this was the goal. We were interrupted by the fire drill, so we're going to be a little bit behind on my other classes. However, the goal is to make, compare, and interpret data displays. And you'll be successful if you can graphically represent the data that you were provided and critique the representation of others. So, granted, we only did it for a little bit, but what might have been difficult about that? That we maybe clear up now or we're not. Because can you all confidently say that you can make a dot plot, histogram, or box plot of any data? Okay, so like for your axes, like the, okay, good. So let's talk about that briefly. That was something that I saw last year a lot too, and I also saw again this morning. And knowing like an appropriate scale for your given data is a skill. So like here's one of the data that you might have had. How many letters are in the last name for students in this class? Ranging from 4 to 10. In that case, like for a dot plot, you would probably want to count by 1 because you don't have a whole lot of data that you're working with. So you can clearly see them on your dot plot if you count by ones. For histogram, since we normally do intervals, I would say 1 to 2 maximum for your intervals. This would be an example of where it's just like intervals of 1, which you could do. If you decide to do intervals of 2, then you'll have fewer bars. All right, but that's how you can decide that's appropriate. For box plots, you just need to have around your minimum and maximum. So that's pretty easy for that one. You will probably determine that we should count by ones for that one. When it's stuff like this, where the numbers are more spread out, the numbers are bigger, you have to make sure your axes at least includes from your minimum to your maximum, maybe some numbers outside of that as well. You don't necessarily have to start at 0 all the time, but you need to count evenly. So like down here for this box plot, each tick mark counts by what? So the ones that are labeled are counting by 500, but each individual tick mark is 100 the way that this is drawn. All right, so I can still see some of this data where it's like 250. Even though I don't have a specific tick mark for the 250, I know 250 is between what two numbers? 200 and 300. So that's why for this one, we decided to count by 100. So like these dots right here would be 250. So that's up to you. You have to keep it consistent. So that's why there's a big gap right here. Because even though we had no data from here to here, I can't just like jump to 1,000 and I'm counting 500. Does that make sense? I should be able to see that there's a big gap in the data. The histogram, it's up to you what you want to count by. This one I did by hundreds, but it might have been smarter to do it by 500 if you wanted to. Up to you. If you did it by 500, you'd expect this to all be in one bar, or maybe all of this in one bar, and then all of this in one bar. Like it would change the amount of bars you have. So does that kind of clear up how to know what to count by a little bit? Okay. I know one group earlier had asked me, well, what do I do? Like most of this data is counting by 5s. And then there's like a random 12. That's okay. Like you can still count by 5s. I think on this one I counted by 2s. Which could also work. But if you want to count by 5s, then you should expect the 12 tick mark to be between what two labeled ones? Between 10 and 15. So if I was doing that, and I know that's on a straight line. Then when I put my dots for the 12, I should expect it to be like here. Not right in the middle because it's not 13, but on the 10 or 15. Good? Okay. So then, yeah. Any other questions from this morning or difficulties that you found? Mine was like the one of these 2000 years. I agree. Not in a long time. But so I agree. This one with the miles away from home, I agree that one was the hardest. I didn't want to exclude it though, because I just felt like it is so important. Because a lot of kids would normally count it wrong or things like that. I know on the Pear Deck, it starts you out with this big, thick line. There are like ways to make it skinnier, so you might have to play around with it. And as you can see, like I managed to fit it on about half of this screen, so I think you guys can see it. You have to know what you want to count by. So like, you see how the major ones are labeled with 500? You could even do that, like just label the major numbers so that you can fit it all. and then do smaller tick marks for like the 1, 2, 3, 400, and then get better at it. Okay. Other questions? All right, now we didn't get to the box plot today, but we'll threaten meeting in tomorrow, so you can hopefully be able to lead your groups in that. What do you need for a box plot? You don't need the mean. You need. So not every single thing you said. Some of the things you said, not every single thing. What do we call it? Those 5 numbers that we need? The 5 number summary. Okay, so it should only be 5 things. One of them is for sure median. Where would the median be on this diagram? The middle line in the box. Someone also mentioned the quartiles. Where would the quartiles be on the diagram? So like the edges of the box. So this one would be with quartile. And then good. And then why are these like why is this line way longer than that line? The data is more spread out on the right side. Okay, so what does the edge of this one represent? The maximum. And then this edge is. So depending on how your data looks, you might have a box plot that looks a little wonky like this. If that's how your data is, more spread out on one side, then you can expect that. So tomorrow when you guys do that, you know you're probably not doing it wrong as long as you can identify those 5 things and put them on the number line, and you should be good. Anyway. Do maybe at home look over your